Hello, this is Mark. Hope you are well. We are going to have a little look again today inside Adobe Audition, which is this. In fact, that's where we're going. We've got the wrong screen, but now we've got the right screen. A little while ago, I was asked how you could produce something similar to the Capital FM imaging sound as used on the Summertime Ball promos. And it's not really that difficult to do. If I'm entirely honest, it's not that difficult to do. We've got a simple basic voiceover here that I've recorded earlier.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
So that's it, just a simple sting for the station, which, as you can tell right now, sounds absolutely nothing like it would do if it was going out on Capital Radio at all. There's no processing to that at all as yet. What we will do is we will go into the multi-track so we can do it twice, and we'll just start a blank template for the sake of this. So a blank template it is. We'll drag that into track 1, and there, no processing on that, so the same voiceover.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
And what we'll do is we'll now drag it down onto the second track, and that's where we'll do our processing, and then you'll be able to tell the difference between the two tracks. So in order to get that crunchy, slightly harsh sound that Capital used on their Summertime Ball, first thing you would need to do in the effects track, go into filter and EQ and the scientific filter, and you want to roll the bass off high for this. So let's roll off to 350. And what we'll do is we'll play it through each time and we'll show you exactly the effect that that's had. So we've taken all the bass off the voice now.
Capital 95.8 FM.
No, we haven't, because we've put it on the wrong track. So what we'll do is we'll actually put it on the right track. That'd be a better start, wouldn't it? If we were to put it on the right track, that would be a better start. I was just thinking that sounds very similar. Put it on track 2, that's better, and we'll try it again now. So let's have a listen.
95.8 FM, London. Capital 95.8 FM, London.
You can hear straight away it's now very weak. It's very, very weak, but it's sounding a little more like that. What we'll do now is we will introduce a little bit of distortion. Now, we're not looking to go too high. We're not looking to go too high on the distortion. When I say distortion, this is digital distortion, which is added through an Adobe Audition effect. You don't ever want to clip a voiceover. That would be an absolute no, to ever clip a voiceover when you're recording it. Analog clipping you cannot get rid of. If you record in with distortion, then that voiceover is in essence ruined. Okay, if you're using 32-bit float and you're mixing and it becomes a little too high and it distorts, that's fine, because then you can normalize it back down. But any form of analog distortion, or indeed if you're using 16-bit in your editing and you distort, that's terrible. Let's have a little listen now, see how that sounds. We'll play around with the distortion just a little.
Capital 95.8 FM.
Now you can hear that's just added a tiny little bit of distortion.
Capital 95.8 FM.
Play it again without the distortion.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Let's just add a little more. See whether we can just add a little more. Not too much, otherwise it's just going to sound awful.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
So just a tiny little bit of distortion there added into that. In order to get the stereo wideness to do this, we will then add a little bit of chorus. So we'll go into the modulation effect and chorus. What we'll do here, we'll close that effect now because we're done with that. What we'll do here is we will up the spread. This is the width of the chorus effect. Don't really need any more, I don't think, than 2 voices for this, but let's have a little play around.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
There you go, there it is, sounding a little wider now. And then if we just add a little bit of equalization here. So again, we go into filter and EQ. Parametric equalizer we're looking at for this. That's an interesting curve, but that's not what we want. Let's go with a, do we have a generic low pass? Let's try a generic low pass, just see quite how that sounds, just to remove a little bit of the sparkle, but not too much.
95.8 FM, London.
Now, that is still quite quiet. There's no way that's going to cut through anything else. So what we'll do is we will go in here and we will add some compression to this as well. So let's have a little play around with the compressor, get it sounding a little louder.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
So there we are. That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Maybe just add a little bit more gain to that. That's your output gain, sometimes called makeup gain. What that does is compression will reduce the dynamic range of the audio. So it'll make these louder bits. You can see the peak here. It'll make that quieter. Anything that goes above a threshold, which we set at minus 10 decibels, will then be reduced by a ratio of 20:1. So what it'll do is it will quieten down the overall effect of your audio, which is why you then have this output gain, which Adobe Audition call it. Some digital audio workstations will call it makeup gain. What it does is that just applies a little bit of extra volume onto the sound after it's been through the compressor. So obviously it'll reduce the dynamic range of the audio, and then you can, which will also reduce the volume overall, you can boost it back up with the output gain. Your other option here, let's have a listen to this.
Capital 95.8 FM.
Now that's just a little bit too much gain there, because you can see that we have gone over the zero. We're tickling the red there, which is too much.
Capital 95.
Still tickling the red, in fact, as it goes. We'll take that down a little more.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now what you might find is a better option here is to not use the single band compressor, but instead use the speech volume leveler instead. Now you want to set your target dynamic range quite high for this. Your target volume level, sorry, quite high. Leveling amount can also be quite high.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Because it's imaging, you don't really need to worry about a great amount of dynamic range in it, so put that down.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
There you go. So that is now a fairly level voiceover. Finally, we'll add perhaps a little bit of multiband compression. I'm just toying either multiband compression here or to use the mastering tool. We'll try it with both and see how we go. A little bit of multiband compression, just using the broadcast compressor preset.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now you can hear, once we've run that through the compressor, the treble, the high end, has become just a little bit too much. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go back here. And if we add a point here and then drag this down a little more, then we can start to roll off just a little more of the treble. Let's see what we can do.
Capital 95.8 FM.
Too much. That's way, way, way too much. Just move that around again.
95.8 FM.
What we'll do is we'll loop this.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Right, so we'll loop that now and put that on repeat.
Capital 95.8 FM, London. Capital 95.8 FM, London.
There we are.
Capital
That's not too bad.
95.8 FM, London.
Now, as I did say, your other option is to turn that one off and use a little bit of mastering. So for this, you would go into special and mastering. As we've already found out, there is quite a lot of top end in that voice already with the effects that we've added and the raw voice. So I wouldn't suggest using the exciter. Reverb may clash with what we've done in the chorus effect.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Not too bad.
Capital 90.
If you add a little bit of that. Stereo widener. This is how stereo it sounds. So if somebody's listening in headphones, is it going to pop out of each ear? In the middle is fairly balanced. If you move it to the left to minus 100, it's going to sound, if you are listening in headphones, quite mono.
5.8 FM, London.
And if you move it the other way to 100, it's going to sound as wide as it can get. So from both ears.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
And then your loudness maximizer, that's your compressor here. This is one of the most powerful compressors in Adobe Audition. Remember, if you are producing something here for actual radio imaging, if you are producing for radio imaging, it's going to go through radio processing. Whether that's an internet radio station, there'll be some processing on that. Whether it's an FM radio station, there'll be a huge compressor and leveler on that. You have to bear that in mind, because if you over compress the audio at this stage, once it then gets through to broadcast stage, it's going to sound awful. So you don't want to add too much here, but we'll have a little listen and play with it.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Let's go up to 40.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now you can see
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
You can see with that loudness maximizer now set at 40, it's kind of peaking just beneath 0 and the whole volume is staying there.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now you can whack that all the way up to 100 and then it's just going to be basically, when we mix it down, you'll see that is just going to be flatlined once we do that.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
But as I say, if you are producing for any form of radio, it is going to go through compression and processing before it goes out. So we'll settle in the middle, try for 40, for 50.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
And there you go. Now bear in mind, different voice to the Capital imaging voice, then obviously it's not going to sound exactly the same, but that's the kind of effect that I was asked whether you could recreate or not. If we mix it down now, you can see this is the original raw voice over here, which is quiet. It does have dynamic range in it. You've got the big peak here, then it's a lot quieter. You can see the effects that we've done here. This is much, much louder, much, much beefier. And if we play the two together, that's the difference between your starting raw voice and what we've done just to create that kind of Capital FM imaging sound. Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now, depending on what you're producing for,
Capital,
that may be. Oh, we're still in loop.
London.
One more time.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Now, depending on what you're producing for, as I was saying, that may be far, far too harsh. If you're producing for an easy listening radio station, an adult contemporary radio station, that sound would be far, far too harsh, I would think. But if you are producing for an upbeat pop station, a CHR station, that's something you could consider. As I say, it's something I was asked how you could do, and that is basically how you get the Capital FM imaging sound in Adobe Audition.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.
Capital 95.8 FM, London.